Indulge in this with me for a few minutes. Imagine that it's Friday night and you're trying to enter into a local club, a very famous local club, and bam, you run into a bouncer. Now imagine that this club is your sprint, and the definition of ready is the name of this bouncer. This bouncer, this definition of ready helps you keep those elements out of your sprint. Like a bouncer will ask you for an ID to ensure that you are eligible to enter the club, this definition of ready must be the confirmation that you seek before allowing anyone into the club, before allowing any new work, any new PBI into your club, the club being your sprint. Any new work, any new PBI, the product backlog item, trying to enter the sprint must pass through this bouncer. For some reason, if this bouncer is away, or even worse, not present at all, the bad elements will enter the club. The bad elements can easily enter the sprint, and the club members will end up spending a lot of energy handling them during this sprint, causing unnecessary churn and commotion. Now continue imagining. Let's imagine that there are 3 coffee houses across the street from this club. There is this McDonald's, Dunkin' Donut, and Starbucks just across the street. They all serve coffee and breakfast. So what's the difference among them? What separates them from each other? They are all different brands and each speaks to different quality. Your expectations are different when you are interacting with these individual companies. They themselves radiate different level of quality. They radiate different brand, different quality of products and services, the quality of interaction and customer service you can expect. Similarly, definition of ready and definition of done speak to the quality of Scrum team. I would say definition of ready and definition of done are 2 bookends of a user story. They signal the begin and end, entry and exit criteria for a user story. You can look at definition of ready as the filter for any PBI, any product backlog item to enter into a sprint. Definition of ready defines when the team can take a story into a sprint, when a user story is a good candidate for the next sprint. As I mentioned earlier, it can act as a bouncer, standing outside the club. If a story does not meet the definition of ready criteria, then the team can and should bounce it back to the backlog, bounce it back to the backlog refinement. Definition of ready is a simple productivity hack that can be easily implemented by any team, and it will have an immediate impact on the team's productivity. Try it now. Deploy this bouncer at the doorsteps of your sprint. Now, on the other hand, the definition of done can be looked at as the final check. Final check before a credit is issued. Before the team is allowed to mark the story as done, the team cannot and should not take credit for the story until it meets the definition of done criteria, created and agreed upon by the team earlier. It will create debt if definition of done is not clear or ignored by the team. These 2 together define the brand for a team. Collectively, they provide more clarity to the team about the functionality being asked. They talk to the quality of the work getting in and out of the sprint. They also help the team in estimation. They are a good indicator of the quality of work done by the team. They also announce the quality to the outside world. Quality of the work getting out of this team. Quality of the work, quality of the product increment that the team is creating. They can also satisfy the audit needs of the organization. Now, who owns these two definitions? You said it right. The team owns both these definitions. The team should have created them during the initial kickoff when we are standing up this new Agile team. As a coach, I just ask a simple question. I just ask a simple question to the team. Can you point me to our definition of ready and definition of done? And how the team responds to it tells you a lot about these definitions. The team would respond to this simple question in different ways. The first response could be, what the heck you're talking about? What is definition of ready? What's definition of done? The other response could be, hey, we don't know where they are. We remember creating it, but we don't know where they are. We'll have to dig out. We'll have to do some investigation and find them. The third possible response could be that they take you to those definitions. They will pull out those definitions and show it to you. So again, as I said, the response that you get from your team will tell you a lot about their definitions, definition of ready and definition of done. Now, just creating these definitions is not enough. More importantly, make it visible. Make it easily accessible to the team. And the team should be keeping these two definitions always on their radar. They should always be in their peripheral vision. Now, simple question. Are these definitions written in stone? Absolutely not. You need to start with something. So create baseline definitions and then revisit them every few months to ensure that they are still relevant. You can make appropriate amendments, changes to these definitions to ensure they are still effective and relevant, and helps team in delivering the quality of the product increment. My recommendation is to revisit these definitions once every quarter. Now, it could be a quick review. A simple question would suffice. The team should ask this simple question. Are they still relevant? Are these definitions still relevant? Are they making the team more productive? Do we need to make any changes, any amendments to keep it relevant? The definition of ready is an indicator of the quality of the backlog item. Quality of the backlog item that's entering into the sprint. Now, if the definition of ready is vague or absent, the team will spend a lot of time churning on a user story while the story is committed into a sprint, wasting very valuable resources in terms of time, money, people, and also taking a hit on their velocity. Definition of done, on the other hand, is the indicator of the quality of work being delivered by this team, quality of the product increment being created by this team. Now, I suggest that you take a copy of this picture and put it on the team's information radiator. Give it to the team, ask them to put it on their information radiator. Explain the concept of these two bookends to your team and charge them with the creation of them. Help them in creating them as well as keeping them visible, accessible, and relevant. Now, what happens if your definition of ready and definition of done, these two definitions, are vague or even worse, absent completely? As we said earlier, the poor definition of ready or absence of it will contribute to the frustration of the team. The poor definition of done, on the other hand, or absence of it, will create a lot of debt. The team will end up creating a lot of debt and eventually will end up paying a lot more to repay that debt later on. Now, simple question for you. Does your team have these definitions? The definition of ready and definition of done. If yes, share those definitions here in the comment below. And more importantly, share the benefits these definitions bring to your team. On the other hand, if your team does not have these definitions, share that as well. Share in the comments below as to what are the challenges, what are the problems you are running into due to the absence of them or the vagueness of them.